So today I'm going to be talking about some of my tanks from oldest to newest, and showing off their features along the way. First up we have the Meowitzer, which is a lumpy mess, because it's a pretty old one. But it does pack some good punch. It has a quadruple shelled accelerated tank cannon, which back when I built this was important because that was before they increased the range on the tank cannons. And it also has hidden machine guns in the hull. And of course it's cat themed, which you'll see most of my tanks are. And here it is in build mode. You can see the piston glitches for the tires and for the gun. But it's pretty simple and lumpy and kind of crummy. So moving on. Next up we have the Squishy Kitten, which is just a little toaster, just a little nugget. But it still has an accelerated tank cannon for extra range and punch. And it does all the things that a tank needs to do. Turns around, aims, drives, and kills. Squishy's a good little tank, kind of. But that's why I call it Squishy's, because of all the piston glitches going on to make it look the way it does. Anyways, it's also a pretty old build, so moving on. Next up is an artillery piece, the Sneezy Kitten Mark 1.3. And it's a bit goofy looking, but it's also got some pretty neat features. First off, it's got the rapid fire mode, which has 4 tank cannons. The piston glitched in there, so it only looks like 2. But if I press L1, I go into sneeze mode, or activate sneeze mode, and then I can fire all 4 at once with heavy acceleration. And if I aim over at this tower here, it should be able to hit it no problem. Yep, pretty good. And there's a little safety mechanism you can see that flips up in the head, so that when the tires are down, you generally can't shoot. But this is an early build and I didn't really know what I was doing too well, so if you spam it, it tends to fire anyways. But it's a pretty simple build, nothing really too special about it, and it's a little awkward to use, so moving on. Next we've got the Sneezy Kitten Mark II, which is a little bit more versatile, although a little bit more sluggish as a land vehicle. It again has a rapid fire, although it only has 2 tank cannons, they're not piston glitched in. Then it also has 1 stage of acceleration, or 2 stages of acceleration. So you've got 3 different ranges that you can fire at. You've got your short range double fire, medium range, which should still be enough to hit the pillar. Yep. And then long range, which will get there a lot farther and faster. But yeah, basically just an upgrade in usability from the previous one, although a little slow on the ground. Once it gets going, it's not too bad though. Next up is the bonk tank, which uses a metal crate dispenser and a custom weapon I call the box cannon. It uses a piston accelerator to put a lot more force into the metal crate than they normally would be able to do. Now, this weapon did get nerfed in the recent impact damage changes, but it still packs a wallop and has great knockback. And then you can try to finish the job with the coaxial machine guns. Next we've got the Cat Tank Heavy, which is pretty basic and has a couple of issues. First off, the turret is sticky. It does not like to turn very well, which is a problem. It also only has the one tank cannon, it's not piston glitched in or anything, and a single tiny cannon for the machine gun. It's got okay armoring, and good engine power though. But there's not much to say about this one, other than it's a cat tank. So I gotta show it off. Then we have Cat Tank Light, which has some improvements. It's got a much better turret. It's got a flush rotating, non-sticking turret this time. It still only has a single tank cannon, single tiny cannon. But it also has a couple little aesthetic pieces with the piston glitch. We've got the V-port up front for the driver, and the exhaust in the back. And this is what it looks like in build mode. We've got our basic piston glitch down here, and then this one is what levels off the tank turret. It's not technically a piston glitch, it's just, it closes down almost all the way, but not entirely. So, there's basically no gap there. And you can see my little character poking through there. Yeah, so not the safest tank to be in for the character. A little exposed, but it's a light tank. It's not supposed to be super well protected. It's supposed to be zippy like this. And then we have an even smaller cat tank. So small it doesn't even use the regular tank cannon. It uses a little laser instead. But I entered this one into one of the build challenges. It didn't win, but it got into the video if I'm not mistaken. And it's just a chunky little piston glitch. And then this one's to center up the 1 block to 2 block adjustment. So pretty simple. And a little horn. Anyways, moving on. Next is a bit of an artillery piece. The Land Autocannon Mark 8X. Or not Mark 8X, just 8X. Because it has 8 cannons that fire very rapidly with high acceleration. And as you can see, they easily hit the pillar from here. And before changes long ago to the firing speed of the cannons, this used to run at full bore, full auto, instead of being a burst weapon like it is now. Still pretty powerful though. Next up we have an improvement on our heavy cat tank. It no longer has a sticky turret, and it's more flushly mounted. And it has better armoring, along with some armor along the tracks. Plus it has some aesthetics in the form of exhaust. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as before. And instead of a camera, it's got a second machine gun. So it has a little bit more firepower for a secondary. But it's still pretty basic for a cat tank. And then we've got something that barely qualifies as a tank, the Titan Tank Mark IV. Still turns and has a fully articulated turret, so it's technically a tank, but it's just a gyro and a jet in order for it to move around. But it's hard to make a tank smaller than this one. Or is it? Meet the RC Mini Tank. It has only the things that a tank needs, and nothing else. But it's also not really a tank because it doesn't have real wheels, it's just a gyro and a jet. But it is adorable and minuscule. You could pick this up and put it in your pocket. And of course, it's way too small to be using the seat glitch. It uses the piston and distance sensor method, which I have a tutorial on my channel for that I might link in the description if I'm lucky. Anyways, moving on. And next up is some artillery. Some Bombay artillery to be specific. It uses pistons and logic to accelerate the Bombays into projectiles. And you can see this one's just in a pretty basic tank body. Just a big old brick with a lot of heavyweight blocks for defense. And a cat face, because of course, you gotta have the cat face. And here's a smaller variation of the same weapon. On a little cat tractor. And now we're getting into our more recent tanks, with the Cat Tank Heavy Mark III. As you can see, it's got a smooth turning turret, unlike the original one. And we've got a doubled up cannon, so it fires 2 shells. We've got our coaxial machine gun. We have Bombay artillery, a horn, and the all-important meow. And that there on the back of the turret is the indicators for the switching logic, because there's not enough buttons in the controller for all these functions, along with all the normal tank controls. So there's a switcher, and all the functions work off X. So that's X, that's X, that's X, that's X, and that's X. And it's R1 and L1 to switch between them. And that's all this logic here. Well, some of it. There's more logic down in the base of the tank to run the artillery, but that's separate. But yeah, the piston glitch brings that down into the body of the tank, so it's nice and safe, because we don't want our brain getting shot out. Anyways, moving on. Next is a slight upgrade to that. The Heavy Tank Mark IV. Unfortunately not completely cat themed, but it still has the logic system to switch between things. We've got the main cannon, machine gun, a box cannon mounted to the hull, the artillery, horn, meow, and a flare. But my favorite feature of all is the wiggly antenna, because it just adds so much motion and life to the build. It just brings a smile to my face. But we got decent armor. We got the track armor and everything. All in all, a pretty good tank. Then we have the light cat tank Mark II, which has a bit of a chunky turret, but is quite a zippy, agile little tank. Would be a good scout tank. It doesn't have a weapon selector logic, but it does have bomb bay artillery, main cannon, and machine guns. And it gets the job done. It's a light tank. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. Then immediately after we have the light cat tank Mark III, which does have weapon selector logic because we've got a couple more gizmos on here. We've got our main cannon. We've got machine guns. We've got our bomb bay, and then we also have land torpedoes, which just kind of scoot across the ground. And I missed everything, of course, because why would I land the first shot? But they're pretty simple. They just scoot along the ground and blow up when they hit something and go under something. And of course we had to add the Meowin because we had the functionality too with the logic. And we could add as many sound effects as we wanted, or at least could fit into here. But as you can see, there's a decent amount of logic packed into this little tank, all throughout it. I think there's even some up here in the back of the head. Or that could be a mistake. No, that's logic. NOR gates and OR gates. Packed in everywhere. Anyways, moving on. Next up we have the Heavy Cat Tank Mark V, which has all the same features we've seen before, but is a much more heavily armored, although consequently slow vehicle. We got our main cannon, machine guns, box cannon, and artillery, plus our sound effects. But we're very, very slow, so hopefully the armor actually pays off, which sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. It weighs a whopping 8 tons thanks to all the heavy weight blocks. But they protect pretty much everything. Even the logic is all wrapped up in heavy weight blocks. Then we have the Heavy Cat Tank Mark VI, which sacrificed a little bit of armor for a lot more engine power, and sacrificed the box cannon as well for a little bit more hull rigidity, because the box cannon did provide a weak point into the juicy center of the tank on the last models. Well, that was interesting. But yeah, you can see a little bit more aesthetic work. I brought back the floppy antenna that I loved so much. And yeah, the evolution of the cat tank is just about completed. And last, but certainly not least, is the Light Cat Tank Mark IV, which has even more logic than before, because it has a fuel system and an ammo system in it. So you can see the display on the left is going up as I'm driving and turning, and that's how much fuel I've used as a percentage. And the number on the right is how many shots I've taken, which I have 64 shots of main cannon ammo. And I've got enough fuel to drive around for, I think it's 500 seconds. Which so far has been plenty to get me all over the place until I get blown up. And if I put it into test mode, I can show you the alarms. So now we only have 20 seconds worth of fuel, and you can see that it's running out much faster. And we only have 10 shots of ammunition loaded up. So we should get our low fuel alarm any second. Yep, there we are. And then the second light will come on when we're empty. And now we can't move. We can still move our turret and fire, but if I just spam the button a little bit, now we're low on ammo. And now we're out completely. So I don't have a proper reload system worked out yet, but repairing replenishers is just fine for now. I have planes that use the same system, and they refuel when they're on the ground, but since the tank is always on the ground, it's not really an option. I'm thinking of making a docking station, where you'd be able to pull the tank in, and it would sense that it's in there, and recharge and refuel, but so far, it's just this. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Bye.
PlayStation